Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Welcome to our platform. If you just found us here at the TALRadio platform, welcome. Hope you are enjoying all the different types of content across many different areas, both on a personal and professional level that you could have here at the TALRadio platform. I'm happy to say we've been on the TALRadio platform now for over 4 years with business influencers. We want to thank them tremendously in all they do. But more importantly, we want to thank you, the listeners that join us each and every week, because we would not be here without you. And we are dedicated each and every week in bringing in subject matter experts to help elevate you and your business in terms of influence to the next level. It's through the power of influence that not only builds your brand, but even more so the relationships that you build based upon rapport and trust and eventually respect that will not only get you more business, but will sustain it and retain it for years to come. So you are in the right place. And our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program, taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. I love the topic that we're going to be talking about today. A broken strategy doesn't need refinement. It needs a funeral. Yes. These are things that we all have to know about. Again, we can't be operating from a broken strategy. We require more structure and strategy and preparation than we've ever done so with any type of business, with all the technological changes around us. And if we are now operating, shooting from the hip, guess what? We're always going to be reacting. Well, we have the right gentleman in place with you here today to share and how you can turn a broken strategy into a ideal strategy. He is Dr.Apollo Emeka. He's a former Special Forces Green Beret, FBI intelligence analyst, a founder of Apollo Strategy Group, where he helps bold leaders scale businesses that actually work for people. From dropping out of school in the 4th grade to earning a doctorate from USC, Apollo's unconventional path fuels his work, helping clients achieve transformational results. And he's going to be bringing a lot of great insights here for you today. And without further ado, we welcome Dr. Apollo Emeka to the show. Dr. Apollo, how are you doing today?
Oh, man. After that intro, I'm doing fantastic, Chris. Oh, my goodness. If I ever have a podcast, I'm just going to hit you up and ask you to do the intro for me.
Yeah, well, happy to do so. I've done a lot of MC work in my day and actually done a lot of voiceover stuff if needed. So done it before. But
I believe it.
We love to hear about this topic. We love to, maybe if you could give us a backstory from your personal experience in where you've seen now how broken strategies, don't need refinement. They need to be kiboshed, put an end to it. And let's get to something that's going to really help steer leaders in the right direction and making sure they're achieving results. If you could share some insights to that would be greatly beneficial to our listeners.
This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And I think that it's really important first to distinguish how can you even tell if you have a broken strategy? Because I think oftentimes leaders and teams think, oh, we just need to execute better. Our problem is just execution. Our problem is collaboration. And so it can be hard for folks to even understand what does a strategy problem look like? And do we actually have a strategy problem? Do we have an execution problem? Do we have a collaboration problem? So there are a couple of telltale signs that you have a broken strategy. One would be just walk around to your team and ask them where they're going. Hey, where are we trying to be in a year? What is the most important thing that we accomplish in the next year, in the next 3 years, whatever is a meaningful time frame for you. Now, if you are asking this question and you are getting different answers, especially if they're highly convicted, if they're like, oh yeah, for sure, our goal is in the next year is to penetrate a new market. Someone else is saying, oh yeah, for sure, our goal in the next year is to add new users. Our goal in the next year. So if you're going around and you're getting conviction on where you're going to end up, that is a sign that you have a broken strategy, because your folks can't tell where you're supposed to be going. Another sign that you have a broken strategy is if you can't open a meeting and say, hey, the purpose of this meeting is to advance this particular objective that's going to help us get to this particular place. So most meetings are status update meetings, or they're troubleshooting meetings.
Absolutely.
Or they are, like, let's work on this specific problem or project, right? And so if you cannot connect, if you can't open a meeting and say the purpose of this meeting is to advance this objective that is going to get us closer to this end goal, then you probably have a broken strategy.
You're exactly right. And I love what you just said there, because oftentimes I feel when you don't have a strict agenda with what you just said, you're not going to get buy-in from people. And people a lot of times are coming in there thinking, why am I in this meeting? I don't want to be here. Maybe they don't even have a chance to contribute. Somebody comes in and goes off on a tangent about something else.
That's it.
But I find when you do that, it elevates the connection. It creates a psychologically safe space where people can say something that they normally would be afraid to say something. And it probably helps to offset any expectations through elevated communication to fall through the cracks. At least that's what I got from what you just shared there.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's impossible to do those things if they kind of don't exist, or they don't exist clearly, right? And so you need to be able to pull from somewhere to be able to do that. And I think, again, a way that you can tell you have a broken strategy, if people keep complaining about meetings and they're like, hey, okay, seriously, time to get serious about agendas, people. We're going to have agendas and we're going to stick to those agendas. But if you have a broken strategy, it's almost impossible to create an agenda that works, because stuff pops up that you weren't anticipating. Or you're like, hey, maybe this is an opportunity. And because you don't have a strategy, because you don't have, vision laid out and milestones to get there, you can't tell what's important. If you don't have a strategy laid out, then it's almost impossible to predict what speed bumps might come up. Right. And so they focus on this tactical things of, we need to have better meetings. We need to have better agendas. We need to have, more direct communication. We need to hold people accountable. All of these things. If you're struggling to do all those things, it's a sign of either a broken strategy or no strategy at all.
Well put. And I'm hoping listeners, you're taking notes, because this is very important. We don't realize how important what Apollo is talking about here is, without that preparation, I mean, everything else, how you execute, how you measure, could suffer as a result of the lack of preparation and being really specific to, how you get people involved in this process, and directly and indirectly. What would you recommend, Apollo, now that you've identified that, a broken strategy is not something that can be, tweaked and it's got to be, you got to go in and right from the beginning, you got to be able to set it up in a way that it's going to work for you. What would you suggest to, we have a lot of small business owners, small to mid-sized companies, even Fortune 500 as well. What would you recommend where they could start to, put together an effective strategy from, in this case, right from the start, not trying to mend a broken strategy itself?
The most important thing is that you have some intellectual courage. And the cool thing is that intellectual courage doesn't cost you anything. Having, the real courage to start a business or to move into some initiative, and start taking action, that takes real courage, because there's real consequences and things are actually on the line, right? If you don't do this, then you won't get customers, or if you don't do this, you won't deliver for customers, or you won't retain talent. But it's funny because folks are oftentimes will more easily go into things that require actual courage and have real consequences, rather than sitting and thinking. That's all we want you to do, is just sit and think. Just have the courage to imagine some stuff. And, in my background, before I was in special forces, before I was a Green Beret, I was a military intelligence analyst. And what we're essentially doing is we are pulling these highly dangerous scenarios from the future into the present where they cannot harm you. And we're trying to imagine all of the things that could go wrong, all of the things that could go wrong for friendly forces, all of the things that the enemy could do. And by, again, exercising this kind of intellectual courage, we're able to anticipate, oh, well, they might, this thing might go wrong or that thing might go wrong. And we're able to hand that over to the operations folks to deal with those challenges, to mitigate them, again, before there are real lives on the line. So just having the intellectual courage to imagine a future, and to imagine a future in a conversation with other people. So if you can build some intellectual courage to just say, you know what, we're going to set aside 90 minutes and, all bets are off. All topics are open for conversation. We're going to imagine a future. Now, what you want to do here is you want to activate your lizard brain. You want to activate your limbic brain. And oftentimes when we start thinking about strategy, we're like, strategy nerd, time to put on my strategy glasses and go inside my strategy cave and get my abacus, right? But what we really want to do is we want to activate the lizard brain. We want to activate emotional centers, not logical centers. So if we can get into a room and we can say, hey, what would light you up to accomplish in this business, right? What would, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you'd be resentful and regretful if we accomplish this thing, 10 meaning you're over the moon, you're super fulfilled if we accomplish this thing. That's where you want to start your strategy conversations, because that is the stuff that is going to light people up and get them thinking creatively and running through brick walls to accomplish. But that's not how we think about it. We're like, well, we grew by 7% last year, and so maybe if we do 11% next year is a good reach, right? No, that is not exciting. It doesn't get creative problem solving juices going. It doesn't get people wanting to jump out of bed and run into work. So we want to start with the emotional center and say, hey, what's going to be a 10 out of 10? And the way that you can tell, and I like to use the word decisions, because goals, priorities, objectives, these all have almost no impact on the brain. But a decision creates cognitive dissonance in the brain. And when you decide something,
you're going to do something with it.
It's a commitment, right? Yeah. It's a commitment. And so I like to call them big decisions. So we get in, we say, let's make a big decision about where we're going to go. What would light you up? And the way that you can tell you have a good big decision, and this is counterintuitive, and people are going to, I'll get blasted for saying this, but we're so used to like SMART goals. Go from X to Y by this time, right? Again, not exciting, not inspiring. And the real challenge is it's also not connected to anything that excites people. It's not connected to the actual challenges that you're going to meet on the way. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to take this decision and say, hey, we want to grow by 20%. But is that exciting? Who here is not excited by that? Or who here, we look up a year from now and we've grown by 20%. And instead of feeling like we're at a 10, we're at like a 2 or a 3. We're almost regretful and resentful. How would we explain that? So we can say, well, I guess if we did it, but we burnt out our top talent. If we did that, but we attracted more customers that are not good for our business. If we did that, but we overspent, right? If we did that, but we compromised our values. So you create this run-on sentence that is, we want to achieve 20% while also adhering to the value of integrity, and working less, rewarding our top performers, and retaining the customers that we want to work with while shedding the customers that we don't, right? So when you have this thing and everybody can look at it and be like, oh man, that's a 10. So that's the first step. And I'll tell you about the second step after you process that.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I love that. I love how you're going about doing this. And again, listeners, I hope, again, let this process what he said. And now he's going to go into the second one and see how this kind of flows and connects. Please go ahead, Dr. Apollo. I love this.
So remember, we activated our lizard brain. We activated the emotional centers, the things that like light us up. And when I do this with individuals and teams, especially individuals, because it's a little more intimate, but people will cry when they see this because they're like, oh my gosh, I see the integration of my professional goals, my entrepreneurial goals, my goal as a mother, my goal as a father, I'm seeing all of that integrated. I'm seeing the full stakes, and I'm like, yes, if I can grow my business by this while also being a more engaged father and a more engaged husband and also working less, right? So this is the thing. We want to create this exciting thing without thinking about feasibility, okay? Because now the second step to this is now we toss that over the fence in our brain to our prefrontal cortex, and we hand it over to the logical centers of the brain, and we say, okay, brain, make sense of this. How are we going to make this work? And you have two criteria here. We're looking for what I call must-haves, meaning the things like, in order to make this big decision, this toddler's run-on sentence, this big exciting thing, in order to make it work, what do we absolutely have to do? So if you think about, going on vacation, this is like, you have to bring your passport. You can pack all the stuff, but it's like, if you don't bring your passport, you are not going.
You're not getting through TSA or anything.
That is it, right? We made a big decision to move internationally to Panama on kind of a whim after never having been here before.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's
U.S.
been
dollars, and they speak English, so it's all good, right?
And we're doing our best to learn some Spanish too. We've got our
my wife is Venezuelan, so I've been through Panama many times when I used to go to Venezuela. Back before it became dangerous to go there. Yeah.
Man, yeah, there's some wild stories coming out of Venezuela. So my wife and I, we were impacted by the fires in Pasadena and Altadena. We had to evacuate. My mother-in-law lost her home, my wife's childhood home. And so that got us thinking, hey, maybe we should go somewhere. And I was talking to a friend who said, well, have you ever been to Panama? I was just there and it's amazing. I said, no, I've never been. And I went in basically to my wife into this Airbnb that we were evacuated to. And I said, are we supposed to move to Panama? And she said, maybe. And 30 days later, we were there. So what we did is we created our big run-on sentence of a big decision. So the only way that we were able to move that fast is because we had all these criteria, right? We had, okay, we want to be in a place where our quality of life is going to be as good or better, where we're going to have to spend 30 to 40% of what we spend here. We want our kids to be in schools that are that allow for creativity and for them to express themselves. We want them to learn Spanish. I want to still be able to operate my business. And so again, we created our own big decision that was a toddler's run-on sentence. And the cool thing is, again, when you do this, the thing that's so backwards is people think, okay, if I set a more realistic goal, then it's going to be easier. But the reality is that when you set these realistic goals, and it's just a single sentence, right, or a single state, it's almost impossible to build a plan to get there. One, because it's not exciting, so you're not motivated. And two, because there aren't constraints on it. So when there are lots of things that you can do in order to grow a business, there are lots of things that you can do in order to grow your customer base. But when you start talking about growing a business, growing your customer base while also working less, while also retaining your top talent, while also leaning into your value of integrity, so that starts to take options off the table by default. It's like playing, what's the name? Guess Who? And it's like, hey, does your person have glasses? And you're able to flip those things down, right? And so that's what having a big decision does for you. So again, first step is you make the big decision. And the cool thing about this is you can get people involved because somebody's like, hey, I'm not interested in doing this at all unless. Cool, toss their unless in there. And now it's a 10 for them. Now they're going to be motivated, right? And so now when you go to create your plan, you say, okay, what absolutely has to happen, right? And we got to bring our passport. We got to bring our right? And then on the flip side of that, what are the things that I call game changers? What are the things that if you were to achieve these things, it dang near guarantees that you're going to make that decision a reality? And those are the only two things worth investing in. Those are the only two milestones that are worth putting in your plan. Everything else falls into what I call the busy trap. And these are all the cans and the shoulds and the coulds. And those, if you're saying can, should, could a lot, that's a sign that you are going to fall into the busy trap. You want to be thinking, what do we need to do?
I love it. It reminds me of the Eisenhower matrix, right? You got the must, the should, the could, and the void, right? And so many people get caught up in the shoulds, coulds. Coulds can be delegated. And then you get caught up in the avoid, which are totally irrelevant to what you're even Get rid of
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Get rid of it.
I love it. I love it. This is such great information that you're sharing. And I know, Apollo, we're going to have you on another show for a follow-up here. And I know you're going to be on my other show coming up later, which that'll be an hour-long show. So we'll be able to do a deeper dive. We'll make sure everybody listens.
I don't know if I can talk that long, Chris.
Oh, I think I'm
kind of shy.
I'll ask a lot of questions. We'll make sure you do it because you got such valuable information. In the short amount of time we have left, is there anything that you kind of want to just sum up and connect these dots to leave people, saying, I got to go get to know Apollo. I got to reach out to him. I think he could help us with our strategy and what we're working on, amongst the other things that you do to help business leaders.
That's an awesome question. Thanks for that. So yeah, if you're noticing those things inside of your business, you're noticing what you feel like is collaboration challenges. You're noticing what you feel like are communication challenges, accountability challenges. Again, these things, sometimes leaders and organizations will look for, we need to get a communications coach, or everyone should read this book on communication and healthy conflict. And it's like, no, the reason why people are in conflict is because there has been no big decision made. People can't see where they're going. So of course they're swerving into each other's lanes. Of course they're insecure. Of course it's hard to hold people accountable. So if you're feeling like you're dealing with these issues of accountability, of communication, of collaboration, and you're feeling like you're constantly in reactive mode, again, that's a sign that you are in need of making some big decisions and identifying your must-haves and your game changers. And that's what I do, I think, better than anybody else. And right now, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I am like a Gen Zer on TikTok on LinkedIn, okay? It's where I get down. Like everyone has their guilty pleasure social media, and usually it's something fun like Instagram or TikTok. My guilty pleasure is like, my wife's like, are you on LinkedIn again? Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn again.
That's me. I'm a LinkedIn guy. I'm on all social media, but that's where I am. The other ones, I post and then I'm gone.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I'll see you there. So please come find me, Dr. Apollo Emeka on LinkedIn, and let's get into a conversation.
I love it. And I want to make sure everybody that's listening, get in contact with Dr. Apollo. Reach out, connect with him. Even if you reach out to us, we'll make sure to give you his contact information because it'll also be in the show notes as well. And Dr. Apollo, this has just been a pleasure, you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. And we want to thank you personally, not only for myself, but the rest of the team here at the Touch of Life Foundation, TALRadio, for being with us here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for listening, folks.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. Again, we are committed each and every week in bringing in subject matter experts like Apollo in to share their words of wisdom, personal experience to help elevate you and your business in terms of influence to the next level. And again, we encourage everybody, please reach out to Apollo on LinkedIn and get to know him. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.